have you ever heard of the color coins?
I think that's
Color
a good one.
coins.
Yeah, color coins. Why not we dive a little bit into color coins, right? Because that's really that's like Bitcoin, bit
Right?
fractionalized Bitcoin. Let's think of it
Yeah,
that way,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fractionalized
Personalized
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Wait,
So
do
what,
you
what do you
own
think of
one?
color coins? Yeah, what do you think of color coins, Danny?
I mean, it was the closest thing we got from an NFT in 2012. Like 2011, Bitcoin was only $1, and 2012 we got personalized Bitcoin coins. It's just amazing how fast these things just go. And I have some information about this. Uh, Coins. One could argue that Coins is the very first NFT to exist because there's one art collectible NFT called Quantum, and they say Quantum is the first NFT, uh, but Coins existed before that. So coins are made of a small denominations of Bitcoin and can be as small as a single Satoshi, the smallest unit of Bitcoin. Coins can be used to represent a multitude of assets and have multiple use cases, including property, coupons, ability to issue your own cryptocurrency, issue shares of a company, subscription, access tokens, digital collectibles. And that is insane. You if you talk about NFTs in 2022 and with all those utilities, it would make sense. But this is 2012, and Bitcoin was just accepted in for $1. And
Mm.
but we have this in 2012. We already have that capability of making this NFT network that the whole world could potentially change, right?
Mm. Yeah, I read in this white paper that Citibank wrote, okay, back in 2018, right? Citibank, right?
Right.
So I think it's very interesting because in that article, it's a super long article, right? Hundreds of pages. Okay, it's more like a white paper, right, from Citibank that talks
Yeah.
about the future of assets, right? And it's shared with me by by our investor, right, who used to be a managing director with GIC, right, Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund. So I guess you get the dips, right? The first dips of learning what's the future of assets and things like that, right? So it's really cool. They're always on the edge, the bleeding edge of technology, right? So he
Right.
forwarded me this article and he said, Leon, just have a look at this, right? Just read these 2 pages out of this 100 plus pages article, right? Because I'm the geek, right? If you don't tell me to focus on that 2 to 3 pages, I'll probably end up reading the whole damn thing and waste a lot of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the two particular pages, right? Really, it sort of changed my life, and honestly, that was one of the reasons why I bought the crypto kitties also, right? So the interesting thing was on that article, it talks about this thing called fractionalized real estate. Yeah, like fractionalized real estate, right? So
Hmm.
fractionalization of assets, right? So Citibank claims that they are building technology. So in the real world, like real estate, right? Now you have to literally buy one house, right? So let's say Danny buys a house, right? Okay, so
Right.
Danny comes to shop for a house. I give Danny a title deed. Danny owns the house to stop, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the future of technology, according to Citibank, which actually we can start to smell certain signs of it, right? Is that once you buy, rather than just one person owning one fixed, heavy, big asset, right? Let's say your house costs $1 million USD. Now you can fractionalize it, right? Think of it like a really big pizza, right? Think of it like
Ah,
a really big
fractional.
pizza. They can slice it into many pieces, and everyone can
Right.
buy one piece of the pie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that very interesting because usually people think that like what you have mentioned rightly so, right? Like NFTs are just this hypey thing that
Mm.
people buy into and stuff like that. But on the back end, there's so much real things going on. Like the big banks like Citibank, the really big banks who have the financial muscles and the influence, right? Building technologies on the back end that we probably don't even that probably regular consumers don't even know yet, right? But
Yeah.
they're already building stuff to cut the houses into pizza slices, letting their own investors, their private investors probably to own a piece of it, right? And from then, you probably have derivative products, right? Like you can just bundle it up, put it into like a fund that invests in like maybe like 10,000 fractionalized real estate, right? So it's just so amazing, right? There's so many things that people can do, right? Like it's sharing economy on steroids, we call it, right? So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you can share Airbnb, yeah, and now you can finally share like hard property. You can own like 1% of a boat. You can own 1% of a cruise ship. How cool is that, right? You can own 1% of maybe your coconut tree that your neighbor is growing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're doing this right now for from like
Mm.
famous NFTs. Like the CryptoPunks, I've heard they got one CryptoPunk that's uh $260,000 in price tag, and fractionalize them into 250 million NFTs, and sell it in a different platform, and everyone can buy a piece of that pie, and that's revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, you see, there you go, right? It's to me, it's very two big waves, right? One is the very consumer front end, like crypto
Yes.
punks, the everyday people, they'll hype it up, right? Which is not a bad thing also, right? Better than no hype,
Right.
right? At least there's
Mm.
something there, right, for the
Uh-huh.
consumer. And then there's this like B2B institutional, real hardcore old school bankers that are investing in new technology, right? And as much as people like to, you know, like trash talk all these banks, right? I think they got to put up front, right? At the end of the day, probably they got to do some like, in order not to scare our regular consumers, people like us, right? Our mother and our
Right.
father probably. Yeah, they have to put on the front that, oh, they're kind of old school, they're very safe, this and that. But you never know, man. On the back end, they release white papers that tell you that you can fractionalize stuff way before all this other
Yeah.
consumer front end facing stuff that is happening. So I find it very interesting. See.